It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined today by Sergio Diaz. He is the police chief in the city of Riverside. And sir, I'd like to speak with you about a major reform passed by the voters in November, Prop 47, passed with almost 60% of the vote, passed in Riverside County with about 53% of the vote. What exactly does 47 do, in a general sense, I should say?
What Prop 47 did is to reduce certain kinds of crimes that formerly could be charged either as felonies or misdemeanors.
Known as wobblers.
Wobblers. They could go either way. So most notably, drug possession of all kinds of, pretty much every kind of drug. If it was straight possession, not possession with the intent to sell, then that becomes not a wobbler, but strictly a misdemeanor.
And the determination of whether it's for sale or just possession is the amount. I mean, if you have a massive amount, it's likely going to be charged as a sale.
Generally, it's the amount, also the form of packaging, but there may be other circumstances around the case that would indicate something.
We also know that theft has been reduced if it's under $950 in value, possession of stolen goods, shoplifting, forgery, bad checks. It's a whole long list. And what we've learned, and it's only been a few months, is that since then, we've seen a drop in arrests, a drop in bookings in many counties. LA County, we know for sure, they've released figures. Bookings down about 23%, drug arrests down about 30%, and that's being repeated throughout.
That's correct. Once an illegal activity is deemed to be a misdemeanor, well, the responsible thing for us to do is to adjust our priorities accordingly. There are plenty of felonies to be pursued.
Right. Why, though? I mean, an illegal act is an illegal act. And I guess, look, if you've apprehended someone and you see they have, cocaine for personal use, nothing else is going on. I mean, if you get a call, there's a robbery going on, sure, off you go. But what's the calculation at the moment, I guess I would say, as to whether there should be an arrest or not?
Well, at the moment, the individual officer and his or her supervisors need to establish a priority. Typically on misdemeanors, if the person has identification, we know who they are and we know where to find them, we cite them rather than booking them. We give them a ticket saying you go to court. Because what happens is, given our current and continuing problem with overcrowding in the county jail, the alternative is to take them to jail, book them, that's a process, and then the jail will release them with a ticket. So it's not, so those statistics really don't tell the whole story, I think is what you're describing. There still may be the same number of charges, but it's just the way the person is receiving that charge isn't as grand. They're getting the ticket as opposed to the arrest. And I suspect that both things are going on.
Okay.
The misdemeanor arrests are lower priority, so we're going to take an officer out of the field to process that misdemeanor arrest less, probably, because there are other more compelling activities for the police to be involved with. But it's also the case, I'm sure, that even if we were arresting that person but now citing them out, you're going to see a concomitant reduction in the bookings.
I do want to ask you, I know that you're with the Sheriff's Department, with the police department, meaning not a prosecutor.
Yes.
And so once the arrest occurs, the prosecution decisions are passed off. But I do know that you're fully aware of how oftentimes prior to Prop 47, some of these folks that were arrested for these wobblers on the drug offense side, they would be presented with a choice. Since there's a wobbler, it could be a felony or it could be a misdemeanor. If you choose to divert into drug court, it could be a misdemeanor charge or even no charge.
Right.
What's happening now with 47 on the books?
Well, what we believe is happening is that people have less of an incentive to negotiate downwards the disposition of the case. So in the old days, when it could either be a felony or misdemeanor, essentially a prosecutor would say to the defendant, look, I could charge you with a felony, that would stay on your record as a felony, that has some serious consequences. However, if you are willing to take counseling, go through a drug treatment program, we can reduce this down to a misdemeanor. There's nothing to reduce it down to anymore. And many defendants are pretty wise as to what's going on in the system. And so they say, well, No, I won't. There's nothing you can offer me.
Right.
I'll take the misdemeanor conviction knowing that that will not result in any jail time.
The flip side, though, and there is one unintended consequence that may be a benefit to our society, and that is because there are fewer individuals being arrested and booked because of the misdemeanors as you described, because there are fewer of those that are having felony charges resulting in convictions, the jail population is dropping. And so what does that mean? We have more space in terms of realignment, because we know that's been a pressure. But more importantly, as I understand it, in many counties, we're seeing those with more serious offenses spend more time on their sentences. In LA County, as an example, we read the same article in the LA Times.
Yes.
Burglary, theft, DUI, from 10 to 20% of their time to 90% is being served. Child molestation, assault with a deadly weapon, from 40% to 100%.
Well, and
That's a good thing, no?
That's correct. We're seeing in some places at least, and I think we haven't seen the same effect in Riverside County yet, but I suspect it will come. We're seeing people serve, as you say, more than 5 or 10% of their sentence and getting closer to 50 or 60%. And that's a good thing. Ultimately, our view is that there are career criminals, and sometimes you catch them in the midst of committing a very serious crime. Sometimes you catch them with a little dope on them. In any case, this is a zero-sum game. The time that the criminals are not in custody in one place or another, in state prison or county jail, they're out among us. And so while it is, I think there's obviously a value of having the jails available to deal with more serious charges. Ultimately, it's a zero-sum game. They're either in custody or they're on the streets with your family.
Right. At the same time, though, I do want to talk to you about kind of the way society, the way California is looking at crime and incarceration. You know, 20 years ago, Prop 184 passed with over 71% of the vote. That was 3 strikes. You know, in 2012, we had 3 strikes reform passed with almost 70% of the vote. That was Prop 36. Last year, we had Proposition 47 passed with almost 60% of the vote. In the last 20 years, we have seen a significant shift in how Californians are looking at charging and incarcerating. And so, you know, as a chief law enforcement officer, how do you kind of balance and take in what society is telling you, metaphorically speaking, about their view of charging and incarceration?
Well, I take it in personally, somewhat philosophically. Not only am I the chief of police, I've been a police officer for 38 years.
Of course, right.
And so I have seen these, over 38 years, you
Right.
see the pendulum swing.
Right.
And it is correct that for many years in California and throughout the country, we have seen we experienced a get tough on crime, increased incarceration of career criminals, increased prison sentences. We have also seen over the last 13, 14, 15 years in our local community and across the country a significant drop in crime of all kinds.
But is that because of the get tough on crime, or is it improved technology? Is it the economy?
I believe all of those things are a factor, although the economy, I don't put much stock in the economy. There are crime drops and crime rises that seem to work independently of boom times and bad times. But certainly there are changes in policing and technology and so forth. But I believe, I personally believe, and people argue about this all the time, police practitioners and academics argue about this. If you're career criminals, if you're violent people, and they don't have to be violent, by the way. One of the things that plagues us right now is mail theft and theft of all kinds.
Sure.
If those people are in custody, they're not victimizing us.
His name is Sergio Diaz. He is the police chief for the city of Riverside. My name is Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.